Excellent. So we should be live. Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Should be a fun hour. We've got loads of people presenting with a heck of a lot of knowledge. So let me first of all introduce what everyone's doing here. Today's webinar is the UKCA Specification and Certification post-Brexit webinar. So a lot to discuss there. It's hosted by the BBA. My name is Peter Sumpton, but more importantly, today we're delighted to be joined by NBS and Sika. More from them shortly. We have an hour scheduled for today's webinar in which we'll be discussing the following topics, as you can see. We're going to understand the importance of getting specification right, how UKCA marking is affecting businesses, the importance of certification, and then finally a Q&A session. So if you'll notice on the GoToWebinar box, there is a Q&A section. If you'd like to type any questions you might have at any time, we'll come back to these at the very end of the webinar. So apologies if we don't get to them. I know we're going to be quite short on time. But first, a bit of a backstory and an introduction to BBA. For over 50 years, the BBA have been helping the construction and manufacturing industries build confidence and mitigate risk in the solutions they design, create, and implement through certification, testing, and auditing. The BBA looks to develop long-term partnerships with clients and associations to enable continued growth in both the UK and global marketplaces, quite topical for today's discussions. They do this while remaining reassuringly impartial. And the BBA also looks to reinvest in the industry as a whole for the benefit of all stakeholders throughout the supply chain. So just a couple of numbers to give you an up-to-date feel of where the BBA are. To date, they've issued over 6,000 certificates and utilize over 400 testing methods, which all help, again, to mitigate risk throughout the entire supply chain. That's enough about the BBA. We're not here to discuss the BBA today. On to our guests. And in total, they have over 100 years of collective experience within the construction industry. So I think we're in safe and knowledgeable hands here. First up, we have Dr. Stephen Hamill from the NBS. Then we have John Alban from the BBA, who's going to take you through UKCA marking updates. Then finally, we'll hear from Sika. We'll hear from Alex Coward, Mark Bidewell, and Gavin White, and they'll be discussing how specification and certification is helping Sika within the construction industry. So that's enough from me for now. I'd like to hand over to Dr. Stephen Hamill of the NBS, who will be discussing the importance of specification and specifying products. So Stephen, at this moment, it is over to you. I'm just going to change presenter so you'll have full control.
Thanks, Martin. Yeah, hopefully we'll get started in a few moments' time. Just make sure I share the right monitor. How's that looking, Martin? Can you see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Excellent. Okay, yeah, so hi everybody. Good to see a good turnout. It's a shame that we can't sort of get together in person nowadays in a sort of nice big auditorium, but I guess webinars nice and handy as well. My name's Stephen Hamill. I'm Innovation Director at NBS. So worked on all of our products for the last 20 years. I'm just going to have sort of 15 minutes now talking a little bit about the importance of specification on a project. A little bit about NBS. We were formed sort of 1973, and that's our offices in Newcastle upon Tyne. Our vision is to be the information platform for the global construction industry. So we're best known in the United Kingdom, but we also now have hundreds of customers in both Canada and Australia that are now part of the wider Big Factor group across Europe. And our mission, so what gets us out of bed every morning, is to use the power of connected data to add value to enable a safe, efficient, high quality construction industry. And if we just have a little look back from sort of 1973, through the decades, it's always been about quality specification templates and guidance. But through the decades, we've adopted the latest technology to give sort of greater efficiencies and reduce risk further. So whether that was the first computer disks, like floppy disks back in 1982, to the first sort of affordable PCs with sort of Windows 3 on, to the advent of the internet, through to 2019, where we launched NBS Chorus, our cloud collaborative specification platform. We've got about 5,000 organizations that use NBS, about 3,500 architectural, engineering, multidisciplinary practices, and about 1,500 construction product manufacturers. So if you put like all of those together, there's a huge number of projects go through NBS each year, about 15,000, with probably a higher penetration at the sort of top end of the market. You sort of your big projects, your schools, your hospitals, your stadiums, as opposed to sort of house extensions and sort of simple new builds. So yeah, let's start today just looking at some of the good principles of specifications, things that we would have said if we've been presenting back in the sort of 1970s. So the importance of a well-written specification. If you want to read about this in a bit more depth, if you Google the 7 C's of specification, we've got a little download, a little infographic there. But these are quite nice, just little introductions to good specification writing practice. So number 1, make sure that the specification is clear. Use plain language, avoid ambiguity, and it's about being fair to everybody on a project, and it should be understandable by all, not just lawyers. So whether it's explaining the intent of the client or fellow consultants for costing or coordination, or instructions to contractors, subcontractor or manufacturers, make sure it's clear, make sure it's correct. So don't just reuse old specifications like from the bottom drawer from 5 years ago because standards and regulations change. Just example here, BS EN 771 has had 5 or 6 major revisions over the decades, with so it amends in between those as well. So have a master specification that's maintained for when you start your new projects. Make sure it's concise, not like at NBS we talk about using keywords. So instead of saying the contractor shall provide 22 safety helmets to the following standard, that either in big sort of waffly paragraphs. Specification is a contract document, so you don't have to say it the contractor every time. And just be clear: number required 20, standard required 2, BS 1, 2, 3, 4. Consistent. Generally, it's going to turn with a few hundred pages, a specification. So if you're going to use the word contractor's choice or contractor's design, define what you mean by it and use that consistently through the specification. Have the same classification system throughout your specification, ideally the same classification system across all of the disciplines, and similarly in terms of the specification structure, like where you put your performance requirements, your products, your execution, system completion. Make sure it's complete. So don't just say product like registered to this standard, but what grade within the standard. So category of use grade 3 to BS EN 1, 2, 3, 4, durability grade 8. Don't leave it incomplete. And make sure it's comprehensive enough. The level of information is going to grow through the project timeline from outline spec, planning, descriptive, prescriptive, maybe record spec at the end, but cover enough information that's needed, but also remove information that's not needed. It's not about creating the longest document possible. So if the contractor does not need to know, or it's not important that it's a configuration group 1 block, cross it out. If they do need to know it, include it. But having that template is a little checklist for you to go through and make project specific. And then the final C, make sure it's coordinated. So there's going to be other documentation. There'll be schedules, planning documents, drawing sections, elevations, 3D, the image. They shouldn't conflict. So cross-references, have your strategy on how you're going to do classifications, cross-references, etc., and keep it coordinated. 2 fundamental types of specification when thinking about like an overall system, like a floor cover or a roof system or a structural system, you can do it descriptively, define the sort of output that you want, or you can do it prescriptively by saying these are the products that we want. So an example descriptive specification here, shown in the context of the NBS Chorus or cloud platform, you could be specifying a roof covering system. So in this situation here, you're putting through a performance set of performance requirements. Again, template, guidance. And from this, you then go through and define the performance requirements for your project. So you might have a number of tendering contractors or subcontractors, a number of different manufacturers that are possibly in the frame. And you could go through and talk about your requirements in terms of durability or thermal design or fire performance. And every project's different. But that's what makes the specification projects specific. What we'd also recommend at NBS is not just defining the overall performance and being really clear about contractor design portions, but specify your requirements on execution and, crucially, testing at the end. So if this is the performance you want coming down one side of the V curve, how is that going to get tested at the end? Like acoustic test or on the screen here, flood test. We will flood it to the following level for the following duration and require the following certification, etc. That's your tight sort of descriptive specification, which makes it fair for everybody tendering. The flip side of that is prescriptive specification, where as a specifier, you know exactly what you want. You know the performance you want, and you know a provider that can supply that. And in NBS, we have a number of partners, about 1,500 manufacturer partners that provide proprietary specifications as well. So in this situation, a client maybe working with an architect on a school project, they know they've used a particular manufacturer before, using Sika Sonifil as the example here, who's one of the co-presenters today. But instead of like describing things, what we're going to do here is just click the button and the specification from your chosen manufacturer will drop into the spec. And then you may have some specification decisions to make. So in this example here, this particular system always comes with the same primer and type of membrane, it's a adhered attachment, but you have got specification decisions to make on things like thickness and color. So instead of seeing the NBS guidance on the right-hand side, you're seeing the guidance that's been authored by the technical experts at that particular manufacturer. And you see we've got little hyperlinks in there, which will take you back to the manufacturer's website or drop an email through to the technical support team. I'm working with some of the largest manufacturers at the moment to actually, I think talking to Sika later in the year to actually allow them to come into the specification and offer specification writing services, particularly on complex systems like roof coverings. But yeah, as a specifier, you build up this prescriptive spec based on the manufacturer's recommendations, and having them at your fingertips in the cloud is one of the best ways to go there. In parallel with the specification, you want to keep it coordinated with the designs. And manufacturer might provide digital objects for leading tools. In this case, this is Autodesk Revit, and from like the NBS source, we got lots of digital objects from leading manufacturers. You can click the button and drop like that particular roof build up in your 3D model, which will have the right dimensions, the right materials for that particular roof. And then make sure that what you put in your digital model, which you're going to use to generate schedules, material takeoff, sections, elevations, etc., is synchronized with your specification. You do not want to be saying one thing on your drawings and have conflicting information in the specification. So you can see here you've got your 3D model on the left-hand side on your desktop. On the right-hand side, getting pulled in from the clouds, that sort of single source of truth on the specification coming sort of straight in. So design and specification hand in hand, as opposed to two siloed bits of information. Third-party certification. So one of the main topics for today's conversation. It's one of the prompts we have in most of our product clauses at NBS. So you've got your technical characteristics of a product, here for example plastic sheets. And if you're maybe specifying generically, so submit proposals, contractor's choice, but you want a particular weather tightness, wind uplift, durability, etc., you may not just want to have the declaration from the manufacturer, you may want that sort of reassurance that certification for certain properties is also being provided. And you may want to have more than one certificate. So for something like a door set, you may require a secured by design certificate and a certifier certificate to certify security performance, but also say fire performance. So you can see here in the NBS plastic sheets here, there's a prompt may be appropriate on that project to require third-party certification from a body such as BBA, that are one of NBS's partners on the certification side. In our NBS source, so this is open to everybody, not just subscribers that write specification. NBS source website, where all of our manufacturer content also is, one of the key filters. And we've done our user groups across the country, talking to specifiers. Certification is one of the most important things. So under the categorization filter, we have third-party certification filters. So you can search for flat roof covering systems and then filter by those that have third-party certification, and then filter by manufacturer name if you wish, and go down from hundreds of results to just the results that meet your particular requirement. So if you're interested in anything that you've seen there in that sort of 14-15 minute presentation about specification, please open up Google afterwards and find out a bit more about us. So if you search NBS case studies on our website, we've got tens and tens of case studies from engineers, architects, project management companies who are making a real success of using the NBS Chorus collaborative specification engine. And I think it is always better to hear the story of how products work through the voice of the customer as opposed to someone that works at the organization. So we've got case studies there from the likes of HMM, Ryder, BDP, but we've got on the screen Hydrock, Malcolm Hollis. And equally on the manufacturer side, if you're a construction manufacturer and you'd like to appear in the NBS system, you have to specify on the largest projects, do a little search for manufacturer case studies, and just like you've seen there from Sika Sonifil, whether you're a manufacturer that produces roofs or partitions or floors or heating systems or structural systems, you can have your technical content in the NBS system as well. So yeah, have a little search around, drop a little message in the chat or the questions if you want us to reach out afterwards. And just like BB out today, we do a number of webinars as well. So search NBS events, and we've got loads and loads of on-demand webinars on all sorts of topics. And we do have a little plug here on the 21st of April, we have our spring conference as well. Got the UK Construction Minister doing a keynote here about the UK Construction playbook from the authors of that as well. So maybe check out the webinars that we run as well. So yeah, just give pop a message in the chat if you want to know more about specification, if you've got any specific questions. Visit our website, Chorus for architects and engineers, Source for construction, product manufacturers, and just finish there by leaving the email address up. And back to yourself, Martin. Please feel free to take control of the screen again. Thanks, everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you, Stephen. Very much appreciated. So I'm going to waste no time and get on to our next speaker, who is John Alban, who's from the BBA, and he's going to take us through UKCA marking and post-Brexit changes, which I know is very, very topical at this moment in time. So John, the mic is over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Okay. Afternoon, everybody. I've got 15 minutes to take you through what's a complex and evolving subject. So I have more slides here that I can deal with in that time, but I've left them in the presentation because I gather the slides will be made available at the end of this seminar. So if you do want more information, that will be available to you. Very quick disclaimer, as I've said, this is an evolving subject. This information I'm presenting is to the best of our knowledge correct, but please do make sure you check latest government information before making any decisions around this. Next, please, Peter. So the UKCA marking is very much a parallel of the existing CE marking we've known and loved since 1992, I think. Very brief background on this because it does inform the rest of the subject. CE marking, basically a passport to trade across Europe, consistent way of expressing product characteristics and preventing any existing barriers to trade. Two ways of doing it. The first one is very straightforward through harmonised European standards. Thank you, Peter. Second route is known as the voluntary route as opposed to the mandatory harmonised standard route. Slightly more complex in that it involved a body such as the BBA, known as a TAB, to, in combination with European partners, draw up a European assessment document, or EAD, which is a kind of pseudo standard, which then allows an assessment to be made against that EAD and hopefully produce a European Technical Assessment, or ETA, which then allows a manufacturer to CE mark the product subject to the necessary conformity activities also being in place. Apologies for all the abbreviations and acronyms, it comes with the territory, I'm afraid. A subtlety is that although this is known as the voluntary route, once you have an ETA, then CE marking does become mandatory. Next one, Peter. Both standards and ETAs define an AVCP, or Assessment of Verification and Constancy of Performance level. In simple terms, this defines the degree of responsibility taken by the manufacturer and the external certification body known for CE marking as a notified body. This can take the form of certification, FPC inspections and testing, and broadly speaking, the greater degree of safety associated with the use of the product, the higher level of AVCP will apply, and the more responsibility is taken by the notified body. Thank you, Peter. So I said, after a very rapid gallop through CE marking, the UKCA system is very much intended and has been put in place to mirror that activity. So for any situation where there is an organisation or a document relating to CE marking under the EU CPR, Construction Products Regulation, there is a UK equivalent. For the purposes of this afternoon, I think the three key ones: the harmonised European standards have been republished by BSI as UK designated standards, and at present they are identical, although more of that later. The EU notified body is equivalent in the UK as an approved body, and the ETA is used in the UK as a UK Technical Assessment, or UKTA. Peter. So the UKCA mark itself, it's not actually a new thing. We've been talking about this since early 2019. It was mentioned in the withdrawal agreement, and as I've already said, it continues to evolve even though we're a third of the way through the year. So do make sure you keep in touch with what's being published by the government. In terms of the specific marks, we have three marks we need to talk about here. The UKCA, United Kingdom Conformity Assessment, is only applicable in Great Britain, so England, Scotland and Wales. To apply UKCA, it must be carried out, or the conformity task must be carried out by a UK-based approved body, and you can apply these marks now. For products newly placed on the market and covered by a designated standard, you should be UKCA marking the product already. For products already placed on the market, you can continue to use CE marking until the end of this year, on the understanding that the supporting conformity activities are carried out by an EU notified body, not a UK organisation. Now for Northern Ireland, the UK NI mark can be used. The timescales for that, in terms of new and existing products, are exactly the same as for UKCA marking. And as for UKCA marking, conformity tasks must be carried out by a UK-based body. It's a little bit more complicated than that, though. We'll come on to that in a moment. Straightforward, though, for placing the product on the market in the EU. CE marking continues to be required for that, and for that, conformity tasks must be carried out by an EU-based notified body. So, brief summary, you can still use CE marking until the end of this year for products already on the market. For new products, you have to start looking for UKCA marking, and for all products from the end of this year. All of the above related to products specifically covered by the UK Construction Products Regulation. National approvals, such as the BBA or Agremont certification, at least in the UK, are completely unaffected by the Brexit process. It is business as usual for BBA certificates. That's also the case for the other products that we offer, such as our testing services, our management system certification, and the more niche certification that we offer, such as the microgeneration certification scheme. But in terms of UKCA marking, your responsibilities and what you need to do will depend on a number of factors. Firstly, where your company is based, the markets that you intend to sell into, whether your specific product is covered by the scope of a harmonised or dedicated designated standard, the AVCP level of the governing document, and the location of the third-party conformity bodies, and for ETAs, the tab that issued that ETA. And the final consideration is this an existing product previously pressed on the market, or is it something we're selling for the first time? Okay, 3 different markings to talk about here. What to use given the market you're trying to sell into. You're looking to place your goods on the market in Northern Ireland. The simplest route, to be honest, is simply to continue to CE mark that product. You can only CE mark if you use an EU-based conformity assessment body. You can't use a UK organisation for that. If you wish to use a UK organisation, or you need to for any reason, you can then apply the UK NI mark in combination with CE marking. There is no situation in which you can use a UK NI mark in isolation. They have to be used together. If you wish to place your goods on the market in the rest of the UK, in Great Britain, until the end of this year, depending on whether it's a new product or existing, you have a choice of either UKCA or CE marking. But from the end of this year, only UKCA marking will be permitted, with the exception of goods being manufactured in Northern Ireland. For those goods, you can place the market across the UK using CE marking or UK NI marking, supported by a UK-based approved body. It's a unique situation, as far as I can understand, whereby a UK body can still support CE marking, and CE marking can be used to place the product on the market within Great Britain. So this slide just really talks about the legislation that's been put in place. Essentially, it's the same as the Construction Products Regulation that we previously worked to, but with CE being replaced by UK. In terms of the rules for marking the product, these are the same as previously has applied for CE marking, i.e. it must be affixed visibly, legibly and indelibly to the product itself if possible, if not to a label attached to it. If that's not possible, you can apply it in other ways, but it would be your responsibility to justify why you were doing so should that be challenged. In the immediate run-up to the agreement, there was a lot of controversy and disagreement as to whether or not you could use CE marking in combination with other conformity marks, such as UKCA marking. I think it's now been established that it is permissible to use UKCA marking and CE marking in combination on the same product, as long as they are separate and legible and clear. This is not the case for UK NI marking, which will not be accepted by the EU. So you cannot place a product on the market in the EU bearing the CE UK NI mark. In terms of declarations of performance, these continue to be required, and it does appear that the UK and the EU are going to require separate declarations for placing the products on the two markets, albeit that the only difference between them should be the identification of the notified or approved body. Thank you, Peter. So how can the BBA help with all this? Well, we have been designated by UK government as a UK technical assessment body and as a UK approved body, which means that we can help you to achieve UKCA marking. We can also carry out post-CE marking activities as an approved body, both in terms of product certification for AVCP Systems 1 and 1 Plus, as an FPC body in support of System 2 Plus, and for testing as part of an AVCP System 3. If you think we can help you with that, then please get in touch, and there is a link there to a dedicated BBA address for doing so. So we have two parallel systems in place now. Does that mean we need to do everything twice and duplicate everything? Well, hopefully not. The UK government has made it very clear in writing that they expect EU notified bodies and UK approved bodies to cooperate as fully as possible in order to minimise the amount of duplication that is necessary. This is also allowed for in the agreement, which specifically talks about, within its 1300 pages, the ability to use subcontractors across the two markets. There is a bit of a sticking point at the moment, however. Sorry, you're a bit ahead of me. A bit of a sticking point at the moment relating to the use of notified body test data. The EU has consistently refused to accept UK-based test reports in support of CE marking. Conversely, coming the other way, MHCLG has stated that it is to the discretion of individual approval bodies whether or not to accept EU notified body test data. The BBA wants to do that. We want to take existing good data and convert it to UK acceptable data without any further testing being necessary. Unfortunately, there is some resistance to this from UKCA in terms of the subtleties of the accreditation of these testing laboratories. We are talking to MHCLG and UKCA, trying to emphasise the points that this should be insignificant compared to the demands placed on the industry by the need to carry out retesting of every single test that's been carried out. There has been indications in recent weeks they are starting to listen in that respect, and I'm hopeful there'll be a positive outcome on this. Thanks, Peter. In terms of FPC, the situation is thankfully much clearer. There is no barrier to mutual recognition of System 2 Plus FPC certification. The BBA has formed partnerships with EU-based organisations, and we will be able to provide, on the basis of a single inspection, a FPC certificate for the UK market, and our European partnership allows the European organisation to provide a notified body certificate of FPC on the basis of the same inspection. So if that's of interest to you, again, please get in touch. If you have an existing FPC certificate from a UK body and you only want UKCA marking, you're not interested in Europe, then you need do nothing. You can continue to use your existing FPC certification. If you did want a FPC certificate relating to specifically UKCA, we can do that for you for a small fee, but it isn't necessary. Thank you, Peter. In terms of standards, all of the accreditation and approval is standards and EAD specific. We will need to add new standards, and we are talking to UKCA about the most effective and efficient ways of doing so. There is an issue, as I mentioned earlier, that harmonised and designated standards are currently equivalent. It will be necessary for BSI to continue to be members of CEN post 2022 in order to maintain that. Hopefully they'll be successful in doing so. In order to maintain consistency across Europe, I mentioned briefly there is an organisation called IOTA which coordinates the issues of ETAs. There is no UK equivalent of IOTA, although MHCLG is encouraging the setting up of that. UK tabs and the BBA are coordinating that, and hopefully relatively soon we will have a UK equivalent. In the meantime, the BBA is unilaterally speaking to IOTA, and we intend to be able to offer UKTAs very shortly on that basis, subject to MHCLG approval for doing so. And apologies for the pace of that, but that's the most information I can give you in the time available. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them at the end of the seminar.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate that whiz through. Hugely complex and understandable that there's a lot of detail there, a lot of acronyms, as John said, that we need to get our heads around, and we're slowly doing that. So if you do need any help, please get in touch with the BBA. So on to our final speakers, if you like, which is Alex, Martin and Gavin from Sika, who will be providing us with a run through of specification and certification in practice. So chaps, over to you.
Thanks, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, just to say thank you to BBA and NBS for inviting Sika along to be part of the joint webinar this afternoon. I'm Martin Bidewell, Head of Technical for Sika Roofing. I'm going to be supported today by Gavin White, Marketing and Product Manager for Roofing, and also Alex Coward, R&D Manager for Sika UK. I'm going to start by just telling you a little bit about Sika. So Sika was established back in 1910 and has been supplying specialty chemicals and manufacturing construction materials now for well over 100 years. Today, our turnover is in excess of £6 billion and operate in over 100 countries across all continents. There's over 25,000 employees, over 200 factories, and last year alone, we had over 80 new patents. One of Sika's most recent acquisitions was that of Parex in 2019. With annual sales of 1.2 billion Swiss francs, Parex is a leading mortar manufacturer. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Yes. So coming back to a more local level, we've got 4 separate offices and manufacturing sites across the UK and Ireland, housing over 850 employees. Our head offices are based in Welwyn Garden City, Hertfordshire, and in 2014, our state-of-the-art £2.5 million research and development centre facility was opened in Preston, the home of our liquid applied membrane technology. The next slide gives you an overview of Sika's capabilities and core areas of expertise. As you can see, we offer products from basement to roof and everything in between. We operate across 8 areas or target markets: concrete, waterproofing, roofing, flooring and coating, sealing and bonding, refurbishment, building finishing and industry. Now just quickly to touch on a couple of those. Flooring and coating solutions are based on many technologies, including epoxy, polyurethane and PMMA resins. They're used in various function areas in buildings and facilities. For example, industrial floors require mechanical or chemical resistance, food industry walls with hygienic requirements, roofs and walls in clean room environments, decorative roofs, floors and walls, in both commercial and residential buildings, and even in car parks. Another of our target markets is Sika waterproofing. Sika are the world's leading experts in structural waterproofing solutions with over 100 years experience. This stems from the creation of Sika One, a quick setting waterproofing admixture for mortar, which was used to waterproof the Gothard Tunnel in the 1900s, allowing electrification of the railways between northern and southern Europe. So now you have a deeper knowledge on Sika as a whole and the 8 target markets we operate, I'll quickly introduce you to Sika's roofing capabilities. Our roofing business consists of leading roofing brands in the UK flat roofing market. Single plies, Sika Sarnafil is a market-leading single-ply membrane manufactured at our headquarters in Sarnen, Switzerland. Sika Trocal is the contractor's choice for single-ply membrane, providing a fast and effective waterproofing solution manufactured in Troisdorf, Germany. A recent addition to our portfolio is Sikabit, a brand of our bituminous roofing systems, manufactured in our plant in Italy, which is the largest bituminous plant in Europe. This offers Sikabit Pro reinforced bituminous membranes and Sikabit Pro Melt, a monolithic polymer-modified hot-applied bitumen solution for inverted roofs and podium deck applications. And finally, Sika Liquid Plastics, which provides market-leading liquid-applied membrane technologies synonymous with the liquid roofing industry and manufactured right here in the UK. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the support services. So early engagement is key for us to ensure that the quality management system is followed and that the project requirements can be met with correct design and specification. Sika are able to offer comprehensive support from consultation stage or survey for refurbishment right the way through to guarantee and aftercare. With careful consideration at each stage of this system, we're able to provide support for each individual project. Our team of over 20 area technical managers can support designers, specifiers, clients and contractors with their projects. We'll provide careful guidance, ensuring the correct system for application and at the same time mitigating risk of any issues further down the line due to incorrect specification. We'll provide project-specific Sika roofing specifications along with NBS format specs where required. We can provide project design support, including wind uplift design for our roofing system, drainage requirements, condensation risk analysis, and thermal performance. Provision of standard details in both PDF and CAD format, and detailing advice for all of our systems. And many of our systems are also available as downloadable BIM objects through the NBS. And we were actually the first manufacturer to have our roofing systems, Sarnafil, available on the National BIM Library way back in 2013, after working closely with the NBS to understand the future needs of the industry in relation to BIM and the government targets. It's critical to ensure that we specify compliant products and systems that we know have been fully tried and tested and that have the appropriate accreditation. Therefore, it's important to Sika that all of our products and systems receive appropriate third-party certification from the BBA, something which my colleagues Gavin and Alex will explain further shortly. Now, in terms of the NBS, we've had an established relationship between our companies now for well over 20 years. We started out working with tools such as the old Reba Product Selector book shown earlier by Stephen, in conjunction with the Spec Writer tools way back in the 90s. Now here in 2021, we're still working closely utilising the very latest cloud-based software of both NBS Source and Chorus, which we see as critical for future to allow improved digitalisation of the construction industry. Tools like these allow Sika to showcase our product offering to a wide-reaching audience. We aim to ensure we maintain accurate, up-to-date product information and specification clauses within the NBS tools to help improve spec writing services for designers and specifiers. I'll now pass over to my colleague Gavin, who will provide further information on Sika's relationship with the BBA.
Thanks, Martin. You able to change forward? Thanks. Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon, everyone. Just as a reminder, I'm Gavin White, Head of Marketing and Product Management for Roofing and Flooring at Sika UK. I've been asked to share with you a bit of insight into the Sika's relationship with the BBA and also our experience in terms of demand and value of certification in the marketplace. I'll start by saying that Sika has a strong and established relationship with the BBA and has done over many years, operating predominantly in the specification market for new build and refurbishment. You know, we're very aware of the value that having BBA certification brings in terms of independent validation of product and system performance claims, including verified scope of application. Understandably, you know, recent events have impacted heavily on the industry, particularly when it comes to system specifications and ensuring that the scope and the performance of any proposed system matches the desired or intended use. Speaking in context of Sika and our experience, we've seen some notable changes. From our perspective, you know, BBA certification is now clearly more important than ever, not just to us because we've always viewed it as such, but particularly with end clients and specifiers. And Sika, like many others, has worked hard to underpin our products and systems with the assurance and peace of mind that comes with BBA certification, and we've heavily promoted the value of it. Certainly the feedback we've had from the marketplace suggests that the perceived value of the BBA and its certification has generally leveled up across the industry, and perhaps any tendency to take BBA certification perhaps simply at face value without the due diligence of content scrutiny has largely gone and diminished. And again, you know, this can only be a good thing for the industry. I can certainly testify that demand for our BBA certification has increased considerably, something which has been verified through feedback from our specification managers across the country that work with architects, surveyors, and end clients, through to our technical customer service advisors, and also actually through recorded download traffic from our website. You know, in-depth questions and clarification pertaining to the content of BBA seems now to be commonplace, as I would expect to be the case for others across the industry, and I think this shows that the industry has really evolved in that respect. In context of Sika, we've always been a massively risk-averse organisation, which has one of probably the most robust systems I think I've ever known when it comes to managing new innovations and modification of existing products and systems. And BBA is heavily linked to this, not just in terms of production of new certificates, but also ensuring that our existing certificates are up to date with any changes, certainly before, you know, any changes are implemented into our range. In terms of how we currently interface with the BBA, I think we have somewhere in the region of about 18 live certificates in roofing and about 38 in total across other target markets within Sika UK. And understandably, you know, this is a considerable investment for any organisation, but hopefully reflects the value that we place in having it. As an organisation, we tend to interface with the BBA on sort of two levels. Our R&D departments will engage directly in terms of new product developments and new certification, where testing is required both internally and in conjunction with third-party test houses for things like fire. The next level of interface is with our product engineers, who manage the maintenance, modification and reproduction of existing certificates. As you can imagine, with 38 certificates and rising, means that our engagement at this level is quite high, which leads me on nicely to the service and relationship that we have with the BBA, which I'm glad to say has undergone some real welcome improvement recently. We have a close working relationship with various representatives at the BBA, and I think it's fair to say that from the perspective of my product engineers, you know, they have a good working relationship primarily with the certificate scientists working on each specific project, and constant ongoing dialogue, and can access fairly responsive feedback on the status and progress of things, whether it's an outline inquiry or perhaps a progress report on the status of an existing project. And from our experience, we appreciate the demands on time that come with progress reporting, particularly where there is an expectation and anticipation over timescales, and therefore, you know, we're extremely welcoming of the proposed online account portal that's hopefully going to be coming soon, which will allow real-time access on the status of projects. And I think it's a real evolution in the way that we deal with the BBA, and certainly will be for others. I'll hand over now to my colleague Alex Coward, who will hopefully offer some feedback from the perspective of R&D.
Thank you very much, Gavin. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alex, and as Gavin says and Martin presented earlier, I head up the R&D coatings developments for Sika, which operates over a couple of the different target markets that Martin presented. And I've been with the business for 15 years now, so I've had a very close working relationship with the BBA over that time. I think obviously Gavin's covered some of the main interactions that R&D have with the BBA. So really today, I just wanted to really introduce myself, say hello, and obviously that I'm more than happy to take some specific questions as part of the Q&A shortly. And one thing I would follow up with on top of what Gavin's already discussed is that innovation is really core to Sika's identity. And our current global strategy has a target in there of 25% of our net sales being from what we would classify as new products. And also on top of that, there's a really strong sustainability focus that we can bring to developments over the state of the art. And the reason I mention that is clearly that means that at any one time, on top of all the existing certification that Gavin's presented there, we will have multiple test programs running at any one time with the BBA for new certifications, which clearly means that really what our focus and what we value is that efficiency of our interactions, strong project management, and the key relationships we have there with the Sika certificate, with the BBA certification scientists. So a really important relationship for us when we're managing this portfolio of innovation and new developments. I think, as Gavin mentioned, really importantly, as well as the new developments, we have the modifications to products. And, we do have a very robust product development process there and stage gate system that makes sure that we manage risk and compliance at each stage of that. Because what we obviously want to ensure as an organisation is that any changes we make go through stringent checks and approvals to ensure fit for purpose. And as part of that, we would obviously work very closely and transparently with the BBA and also some of our other external partners, such as the fire test houses, really to ensure that we discuss any changes we would want to make at an early stage, make sure we then set up the work programs in place to test and approve those changes, and ultimately make sure that our certificates are absolutely up to date and relevant with the latest incarnation of the product, which clearly is dual-fold, that being from peace of mind from the specifier and the customer right through to us making sure that our product offer is absolutely up to date. So clearly all of that involves lots of key discussions with the BBA amongst others. As Gavin presented, we've had a very long and valued relationship with the BBA, and we really do look forward to growing that moving forward, and particularly with the increasing importance of this certification for the market. So really on behalf of Sika, on behalf of Martin, Gavin and myself, I'd really like to say thank you to the BBA for asking us to present today, and also obviously to all of you who have attended for listening. And I'm sure we'll all be very grateful to answer any questions you have as part of the Q&A session. So thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you so much, Martin, Gavin and Alex for summarising there. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. We've got a few more minutes for any questions. There's been a few come through from the audience, predominantly on UKCA. Needless to say, if we don't get to answer those questions, then you can contact NBS, Sika or BBA using those email addresses. Apologies, the typo on the marketing BBA one. That's my bad. But yeah, please get in touch with either NBS, Sika or BBA if you do have any further questions or if your question isn't answered today. So first of all, I've got a question from, apologies if I don't say your name correctly, Gianluca. And it is for John. It's about UKCA. So John, what is the process to getting a UKCA marking if there is no UK testing facility for an EN standard that comes under the AVCP level 3?
As I said, we are hoping to establish a mutual recognition system with Europe. We're hopeful that's going to be accepted, and if it is, we would be able to take data generated by a suitably notified body in Europe and convert that in an efficient and cost-effective way to an equivalent report for use towards UKCA marking.
Yeah, I think that's quite a detailed question that we could probably chat about for a fair while, and certain things that might affect others in that as well. So Anne-Marie has asked a few questions. I'm not sure if we'll get through them all, but the first one, John, I'm not quite sure if you'll be able to answer this one, but if not, we can find the answer out and get back to Anne-Marie. It's where can I find info on how to make up the UKCA version of the DOP and CE label?
In terms of the DOP, I think you can basically take the existing one you have for CE marking and just replace the identity of the notified body you use for that with the UK approved body. That should be fairly straightforward. There is information on government websites about the other issue. Perhaps if you could contact us by email, I'll provide you with a link into where you'll be able to find the information.
Yeah, that's cool, excellent. I think again that's a little bit more detailed than we have time to go into. Just to let everybody know in the audience that this is being recorded, so the slides and the presentation will be sent out to anybody that registered but unfortunately didn't get in because we were limited on numbers. So if you can let any colleagues know that they will have an opportunity to see this, that would be fantastic. So I know a couple of people in the audience have asked that. So yeah, we will share the recording and the slides. So there's one here from Stuart. I'm just trying to see the whole question here. 1 second. So Stuart says, we have a German originated ETA approval. Would this be recognised in the same way as an EN? Would the BBA recognise the ETA data, and then in brackets, assuming government approval?
Yes, it isn't valid in itself for UKCA marking, but we would be able to take an ETA issued by a European tab and produce a UKCA compliant UKTA, again apologies for the abbreviations, that you could use on the basis of the work already carried out. So essentially it's a little more than a rebranding exercise, but not much more.
Okay, excellent. Hopefully that answers your question, Stuart. Just time for a couple more, and these are aimed at NBS, I think. So Stephen, maybe you can put some clarity around these. I don't understand this one, so hopefully you do, but what is the difference between CAWS and Uniclass 2015? Stephen, are you still there? Yeah, he's just on. Stephen, I've just unmuted you. Are you still there?
Yeah, hi there, I'm back.
Hi.
So I think that was probably a question about classification. And I say for the last 20 years, the most common classification system for specification has been common arrangement of work sections. And that's traditionally based around sort of similar materials. But I think the difference probably between that and Uniclass 2015 is Uniclass 2015 is like fundamentally in NBS based around the systems themselves. So that gives a home for things like system performance, content system, completion content, and allows you to bring all of the products that form the system together, which we think is better for things like packaging and in particular contractor-led design, contractor design packages where you can sort of clearly pop those performance requirements in right at the top.
Okay, excellent. So just one final question for yourself, Stephen, and this is, what information should go in the model and what should go in the specification? I think it's a good one to end with.
Yeah, that's a good question that's been debated for a long time. I think there's a sort of law saying that the information should go in once and in the right place. Now, I think with modern technology, you can synchronize certain information. So using plugins and the likes, you can synchronize the classification, the type code, the titles, etc. But generally, things like the geometry that the drawings that you want to generate from your 3D model, like, definitely should be going in the object. Maybe key properties as well for analysis. If you're going to do things like coding on things like fire drawings, or maybe like pressurization and flow rates and things like that, that needs to be in the model. But I think when you're going into the real sort of detailed product specifications, execution, system completion, you don't want to be squashing all of that into the sort of 3D model. So keep that separated but linked, I think, is probably the best advice.
Okay, excellent. Right, we're bang on 3 o'clock, so perfect time to finish. So it concludes today's session. Thank you so much to all the speakers for their time and, more importantly, knowledge today. And most importantly, thank you so much for taking the time to listen today. An hour out of your day, it is really appreciated by everybody. So thank you very much from the panel and myself. Have a great rest of your day, and hopefully we'll see you on one of our next webinars.